Hey guys, in this video, I'll show you how to make the best beam DPS build on every base class. So in total I'm going to show 6 different setups. This is an updated version of my previous beam build. The biggest change is that the build now uses Dawn's Wrath instead of Ardent Flame as the second core skill line. Beam is still the most practical setup when it comes to DPSing, even though there are other setups that can pull ahead in single target damage. I have tested it in veteran hard mode dungeons, Balsunar, Earthen Root Enclave, Nachkadish, Lepsukluza, and the Dread Cellar, with different subclasses, and in veteran Kainzagis trial. You can find recordings and logs from all of these in the description. The build is also on my website, so if you prefer written guides over YouTube videos, you can read it there instead. The link will be in the description. Before we get into skills, let's talk about subclassing. You can use this build with any base class. We will almost always use these two skill lines, Arcanist's Herald of the Tome and Templar's Dawn's Wrath. Herald of the Tome gives us access to the core ability of this build, Pragmatic Fatecarver. Dawn's Wrath provides us with Radiant Glory, an extremely strong execute, and Solar Barrage, a skill which increases damage of class skills by 5%, which will affect Fatecarver. Dragonknight is an exception. It uses Ardent Flame and Earthen skill lines, instead of Dawn's Wrath. For your third skill line, you can choose one of these, Aedric Spear, Stormcalling, Assassination, Animal Companions, or Gravelord. If your base class is Arcanist or Templar, you can choose any of them. Otherwise, you're locked to a single possible combination. The DPS numbers come from the Iron Atronach dummy PARSES, but each subclass also has additional benefits. Bonuses that aren't reflected on a dummy parse, but can be useful in actual fights. For example, Aedric Spear's Piercing Spear passive gives bonus critical damage, but it wasn't important on the dummy because it already has enough critical damage, but it will make a difference in actual content. Dragonknight with Ardent Flame and Ardent Heart parses the highest, at 147,428. The additional benefits are self-sufficient Major Resolve from Shadowspike Mantle, supporting the group with Standard of Might, providing Major Brutality and Sorcery for the group, thanks to Ignis weapons. It gains additional 2,974 armor from Heart of Stone passive, and it doesn't lose Cleave and Execute, because it never switches from Pragmatic Fatecarver to Radiant Glory. Stormcalling parses 141,249. It has self-sufficient Major Resolve from Hurricane, additional Sustain from Capacitor, and situational self-healing from Critical Surge. Assassination parses 145,350. The additional benefits are 10% critical damage from Hemorrhage, Group Minor Savagery from Hemorrhage, Great Sustain and Trash thanks to Executioner passive, and Ultimate Generational Kills thanks to Soul Harvest. The con is that it requires flanking enemies for the Master Assassin passive to work. Animal Companions parses 144,621. The additional benefits are Great Sustain thanks to Flourish and either Bullnedge or Blue Betty, additional critical damage from Advanced Species, self-sufficient Major and Minor Breach thanks to Deep Fissure, which is very helpful when playing with bad tanks, and Deep Fissure is a very good ability to pre-buff in trash packs. The con is that Wild Guardian is a single target ultimate that has to be double barred, so you can't bring the Languid Eye as a backup AoE ultimate. Gravelord parses 143,887. The additional benefits are extremely strong Execute thanks to Death Knell, and additional penetration from Dismember, which is helpful when playing with bad tanks. And the con is that abilities that interact with corpses are extremely buggy. And then we have Aedric Spear, usable only by a Templar. It parses 145,890, and the additional benefits are 12% critical damage from Piercing Spear, and 6% armor from Balanced Warrior. Moving on to skills. This is a base setup that uses only Herald of the Tome and Dawn's Wrath skill lines, and which should be your starting point, to which you will later add skills from your third skill line. First we have Cephaldrax's Flail, an AoE spammable that generates cracks, heals you if you hit an enemy, and increases the damage enemies take from you by 5%. Next we have Pragmatic Fatecarver, the main ability of this build, an extremely powerful crack spender that deals full damage on AoE, has a massive range of 22 meters, and grants you a big damage shield while you channel it. Radiant Glory is an execute channel which starts scaling at 33% HP, and becomes stronger than Fatecarver at around 20% HP. It also heals you for 15% of damage done. Next we have Quick Cloak, an ability that grants a short burst of movement speed, major evasion buff, which reduces your damage taken from AoE attacks, and deals damage over 30 seconds. The damage it deals can proc your weapon enchantments, which is important, because you can't proc them with law attacks while beaming. Next we have Camouflage Hunter. This ability will grant you the Minor Berserk buff, which increases your damage done by 5% for 5 seconds. after you deal critical damage from enemy's flank, which has a very wide radius. It's a buff which should be provided by your healers, but this skill can fill the gaps in uptime. It will also trigger the Slayer passive, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 3%. The Languid Eye is an ultimate which deals damage in a small AoE over 6 seconds, which can be moved by pressing the ability again, and this movement is off global cooldown. You can press it even while beaming. The Languid Eye is slotted on both bars to benefit from the Splinter Secrets passive. Solar Barrage is a 22-second dot, which deals damage around you and increases your damage done with class abilities by 5%. Fulminating Rune is a decent dot which grants 3 allies a synergy, which deals a lot of damage in AoE. Inspired Scholarship is an ability which deals a lot of damage and ensures you'll have at least 1 Crux when your beam ends. Stampede is a gap closer which leaves a ground dot under your target, which will constantly proc your weapon damage enchantment, and increase your direct damage done, thanks to Merciless Charge set. And Vampire's Bane is a 32-second dot that grants you Major Savagery and Major Prophecy. So that was the base setup, and now I'm gonna show you a bunch of situational skills. Whenever you need to slot something situational, replace one of the Major Savagery / Prophecy skills, either Vampire's Bane or Camouflage Hunter. Camouflage Hunter is better in AoE fights and when your healers don't provide Minor Berserk, and Vampire's Bane is better in single target fights. Then replace Fulminating Rune, and then Quick Cloak, in that order. Flawless Dawnbreaker is a replacement for Frontbar Languid Eye, when you have enough penetration, slotted just for the Slayer passive. Resolving Vigor is a self-heal you'll need for some fights. Proximity Detonation is an extremely good ability for trash packs, because you can precast it as you're running into them. Elemental Rage is the best ultimate for trash packs. Radiant Oppression is the other morph of Radiant Glory, which costs more magicka and doesn't heal, but deals more damage. It starts scaling at 40% HP, and becomes stronger than Fatecarver at around 24% HP. You should be able to sustain it if the execute phase is short enough, or if you're getting some additional sustain from somewhere. Barb Trap is your source of minor force if you haven't obtained the Velofi Urmage's Amulet Mythic yet. It's also a strong single target dot, which can replace Camouflage Hunter if you already have Minor Berserk and Major Savagery / Prophecy. And Elemental Blockade is a replacement for Stampede whenever you're using a Distraction Staff instead of a Greatsword on your back bar. Now this is the rotation. Though remember, right now we're only using skills from 2 skill lines. This rotation will get altered later. It's just a list of priorities. Simply recast abilities when they run out, and follow this list of priorities when there are multiple things to refresh. Stop refreshing dots when the boss is about to die. The timing is impossible to advise on because it depends on the boss's max health and your group's DPS. Now moving on to setups which add the 3rd skill line. So first we have Assassination. This one barely changes. The only change is that Soul Harvest, on the front bar, replaces the Languid Eye. There's also one additional situational skill, Incapacitating Strike, the other morph of Soul Harvest, which doesn't grant ultimate on kills, but deals more damage, and transforms into a stronger version when used with 120 ultimate. It can be better in fights where you wouldn't get killing blows anyway. And the only change in the rotation is that now you want to use Soul Harvest instead of the Languid Eye, if you need single target damage. Now this is a trash setup of Assassination skill line. The changes compared to regular Assassination setup are that Elemental Blockade replaces Stampede, Proximity Detonation replaces Vampire's Bane, and Elemental Rage replaces the Languid Eye. Now this is the final Stormcalling setup. The only change in the base setup is that Hurricane replaces Camouflage Hunter. We also have 2 situational skills. First one is Critical Surge. This becomes your best self-heal option, instead of Resolving Vigor, in fights that require you to bring a self-heal. Though keep in mind that Resolving Vigor is still the better option in fights where you have no enemies to hit while the damage is happening, and thus can't proc Critical Surge. And we also have Ball of Lightning, a great mobility tool, which you can use in fights where you have to move around a lot. The only change in the rotation is that Hurricane gets added between Scholarship and Fulminating Rune. And Hurricane can also be pre-buffed. Now this is Stormcalling's trash setup. Camouflage Hunter replaces Hurricane on front bar, Hurricane moves to back bar, replacing Vampire's Bane, Elemental Blockade replaces Stampede, and Elemental Rage replaces the Languid Eye on back bar. Now this is the regular Animal Companion setup. Compared to base setup, Blue Betty replaces Fulminating Rune, Deep Fisher replaces Camouflage Hunter, and Wild Guardian replaces the Languid Eye on both bars. Situationally, you can use Bull Netch instead of Blue Betty if you're struggling with stamina more than with magicka. As for rotation, Wild Guardian and Deep Fisher end up at the top, and Blue Betty ends up below Quick Cloak. And you can also pre-buff Blue Betty and Deep Fissure. Now as for Trash setup, Camouflage Hunter replaces Deep Fissure on front bar, but Deep Fissure moves to back bar, replacing Vampire's Bane. Elemental Blockade replaces Stampede, the Languid Eye replaces Wild Guardian on front bar, and Elemental Rage replaces Wild Guardian on back bar. Moving on to Gravelord. In the base setup, Designating Siphon replaces Camouflage Hunter, Skeletal Archer replaces Vampire's Bane, and Flawless Dawnbreaker replaces the Languid Eye on the front bar. As for situational skills, we have Glacial Colossus, a source of major vulnerability for the group. It's a personal DPS loss compared to the Languid Eye, but an overall damage gain for the group, if nobody else is providing it. Now as for rotation, Skeletal Archer and Detonating Siphon end up behind Stampede, but Siphon becomes number 1 priority if the corpse from your Skeletal Archer is about to expire, and it lasts 5 seconds. You can also pre-buff Skeletal Archer. Now as for Trash setup, Camouflage Hunter replaces Detonating Siphon, Glacial Colossus replaces Flawless Dawnbreaker, Elemental Blockade replaces Stampede, and Elemental Rage replaces the Languid Eye. Now this is Aedric Spear setup. The only change is that Crescent Sweep replaces the Languid Eye on front bar. There are no situational skills, and the only addition to the rotation is that you can cast Crescent Sweep if the fight is about to end and you won't get enough ultimate for another Languid Eye. In the Trash setup, Elemental Blockade replaces Stampede, Proximity Detonation replaces Vampire's Bane, and Elemental Rage replaces the Languid Eye. And lastly we have the Dragonknight setup, where Searing Claw replaces Radiant Glory, Incinerate replaces Camouflage Hunter, Shatterspike Mantle replaces Solar Barrage, Molten Whip replaces Fulminating Rune, Ignis Weapons replaces Vampire's Bane, and Standard of Might replaces the Languid Eye on the back bar. Situationally, we also have Burning Embers, the other morph of Searing Claw, a 10-second dot which heals you for a decent amount on cast, and then continues to heal you whenever it ticks. Use it if you need more healing. The rotation is completely different, so there's no point in me listing changes. Maintaining Molten Whip stacks can be optimized further beyond a simple list of priorities. Searing Claw is your shortest Dragonknight ability, so if you cast other Dragonknight abilities shortly after it, Molten Whip won't run out for the next 10 seconds, because it will be refreshed by Searing Claw first. Because of this, it's sometimes worth delaying the recast of Incinerate or Shatterspike Mantle, even when they're ready, if both are expiring around the same time. Keep doing other things until Searing Claw runs out, recast it, and only then refresh Incinerate or Shatterspike Mantle. This ensures Searing Claw always has the shortest remaining timer, so you won't have to refresh any ability early, just to keep up stacks. Now as for Trash setup, Fulminating Rune replaces Searing Claw, Soul of Flame replaces Ignis Weapons, Elemental Blockade replaces Stampede, and Elemental Rage replaces Standard of Might. Now as for passives, I am now very quickly going through all of the passives you should get on the screen. You can either pause the video or look up this list on the website guide. You should obviously only look at class passives of the skill lines you ended up choosing, even though I'm showing all of them. This is the base setup that will work for most situations and which should be your starting point when making situational setups. So, Slivers of Null Arca, 4-piece Highland Sentinel, not 5-piece, Velothi Urmage's Amulet, Narayan Monster Set, and Backbard Merciless Charge. When choosing different situational sets, you can only replace Slivers of Null Arca. Now, this is a list of situational gear. Sul'Zan's Torment is the best set for trash packs, and for bosses that regularly spawn smaller adds. And Ansuul's Torment is the best set for AoE boss fights. And Crushing Wall is better than Merciless Charge in trash packs, simply because we need the distraction stuff if you want to access the Elemental Rage ultimate. Now this is a list of alternative gear, so gear that is easier to obtain and can be used while you work towards the best gear. As for crafted gear, we have Order's Wrath and Tideborn Wildstalker. And as for gear coming from PvP, we have Deadly Strike. Also, you should use Absorb Stamina enchant instead of Flame when using the Dragonknight setup. Now let me show you a bunch of examples of final setups you could end up with. This is the crafted setup, which uses Tideborn Wildstalker, Order's Wrath, and 2-piece Highland Sentinel. And it uses Inferno Staff Backbar instead of a Greatsword. It parses 117.9k DPS. You should also fit Barb Trap into your skill setup. I would also advise to replace Stampede with Elemental Blockade, because without Merciless Charge, they're pretty similar, and Elemental Blockade is easier to sustain. This is a setup you should use if you don't have access to any trial gear. Compared to the regular setup, the only thing that changes is that it uses Typeborn Wildstalker instead of Null Arca. It parses 135.7k DPS. This is the ideal setup for trash packs, which uses Sul'Zan's Torment instead. And this is the ideal setup for AoE boss fights, which uses Ansuul's Torment instead. And parses 142.9k DPS. Moving on to champion points. In the build tree, you'll want to use Master at Arms, which increases direct damage by 6%, Biting Aura, which increases AoE damage by 6%, Wrathful Strikes, which increases your weapon and spell damage by 205, and Fighting Finesse, which increases your critical damage by 8%. Replace Fighting Finesse with Exploiter if your supports are providing enough critical damage for you to reach the 125% cap without Fighting Finesse. You can also use Riving Blows if you need more healing. In the red tree, you'll want to use Bond's Vitality, which increases your max health by 1400, Fortified, which increases your armor by 1731, Bloody Renewal, which grants 1500 stamina on kills, and Rejuvenation, which increases all of your recoveries by 90. You can use Celebrity in fights where you need more movement speed. Replace the champion point, which is least useful for that fight. For example, replace Bloody Renewal if a certain fight has no adds you could kill for stamina. Moving on to race. The difference between best and worst race is about 5% of DPS, and there is no content in the entire game that you'll be blocked from completing because of choosing a bad race. With that said, the best race for 12-man content is Dark Elf. The best race for 4-man content is Khajiit. And other decent options are Orc, High Elf, Wood Elf, Imperial, and Redguard. Moving on to Mundus. You should use the 5th Mundus, which increases your critical chance. As for attributes, it's extremely simple. You should always put all 64 points into stamina. Moving on to food. Your sustain can vary greatly because it's impacted by your race, the amount of synergies provided by your teammates, and by your chosen 3rd skill line. So choose the food with more stamina recovery, if you can sustain. The options with max HP, for most content. Braised rabbit with spring vegetables. It provides max health and max stamina. Use it for most of regular content. Then we have Artium Takeaway Broth, which provides max health, max stamina, and stamina recovery. Use it when you need more sustain. Dubious Camoran Throne is a cheaper alternative. And now food without max HP, which you should use for parsing or content where you know you can get away with it. We have Hearty Garlic Corn Chowder, which provides max stamina, and Lava Food Soup and Salt Rice, which provides max stamina and stamina recovery. Moving on to potions. Most of the time you should use Tri-Stat potions. They will greatly improve your sustain. You can craft them by combining Columbine, Bagloss, and Mountain Slaver. There are better potions, but they're extremely expensive. Heroism potions can provide 100% uptime on minor heroism buff, which generates ultimate, but they're extremely expensive because they're crafted by combining Dragon Rheum, Dragon's Blood, and Columbine. And that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, you can comment down below, or join our Discord server Wildheart. As always, feedback will be appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my Twitch. Thanks for watching and see you next time.